Inspired Talks. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine. What we are going to discuss is what Swamiji had talked on July 11th, 1895. And those of you who have been listening to these talks sincerely and from the beginning would realize that Swamiji has been talking on a lot of topics, but his focus is on Vedanta because Swamiji had felt that in the West, Vedanta and Yoga will have more appeal. And 100 years from that time, that means in present times, we see how Buddhism and Vedanta, only these two have really taken off in the West. The larger aspect of Hindu religion, Hinduism is a very vast religion. It's such a vast religion that imagine that whole of Buddhism, Lord Buddha, is just a sage, just one of the many sages of Hinduism. And in the Shavatar Stotra, Lord Buddha has been prayed as one of the avatar. And when you look at the line of sages, he's just one of the sages. So wherever there is Hinduism, wherever there is Buddhism, it's only Hinduism. Because the fundamental differences between Buddhism and Hinduism is meager. Now, Swamiji's in July 11 talk, he has been talking about Vedanta and other religions, which includes a bit of Christianity, but a lot of Buddhism. The ultimate philosophical aspect of Buddhism. And Swamiji shows how Vedanta and Buddhism differ. So it's pretty important not only to understand the difference between Vedanta and Buddhism, but also because it directly applies to our own life. But before that, you'll see that we all enjoy life. And while enjoying life, a time comes when we feel curious to know if there is something beyond all this. More than that, if there is a surface on which all these things are just like waves, the bottom line is that somewhere you feel that whatever is in life is fleeting. And this feeling comes in everyone's life. Someone gets it today, someone got it yesterday, and some will get it tomorrow. But this feeling has to come. And religion begins from that point. When we talk about the famous story in the life of Lord Buddha, that he had those experiences of seeing an old man and a sick man. Essentially, Lord Buddha, if you treat him as a sage, because we don't want to treat him as a sage, he was God incarnate. He was God. But when God comes on this earth, even he needs some excuse to do something. So that excuse in Lord Buddha's life was when he had those encounters. We all have our own encounters. But generally, sudden conversion, this is known as sudden conversion, when you feel that your life changes forever. Actually, this does not happen. This does not happen. And that is why in Buddhist tradition, when they wrote the Jatak stories, they had this concept of Bodhisattva, where the sage Buddha has been moving towards perfection. Birth after birth, birth after that, birth. And in Hindu tradition also, when your virtues, that is punya, keep on accumulating bit by bit, then after so many births, you get a desire to interact with a monk By monk, we mean somebody who is into spirituality. And then that spark gets ignited. See, here in Ramakrishna Mission, there are so many monks, literally thousands. And the number of people they know runs in lakhs. It's not that we are always talking only business. We also talk spirituality. I'm often reminded of my very good friend, Mr. Ajay Nayak, about whom I have talked many times. I take his name quite frequently. One reason is that he is one of the forces behind this series of talks, Inspire Talks. And he told me, Swamiji, don't try to shorten it. Go on talking as elaborately as possible because this is your commentary. So there was a time when I was at Chapra and he used to be divisional commissioner. He was a senior IS officer. And every week he used to come for 2-3 hours in the evening. We used to talk about literature and this and that, but mostly we used to discuss spirituality. And even in those days, I used to feel surprised that, see, here is an IS officer. In India, IS officer is something really big, very big, particularly in a state like Bihar. These are feudal states. In feudal state, IS is a big thing. So here is a senior IS officer and he comes every week, and he even used to give up his appointments Monday morning if he had with the higher officials. Why? Because somewhere this spark, the words coming from me touched him. There were hundreds other in Chapra, but not everyone got interested. So, to be interested in spirituality, you have to build it bit by bit by bit, drop by drop. And when the fire, or rather the fuel that is inside you, gets ignited by the spark that comes from outside, you want to know. You want to know what is there. What is this world? Then you take one of the two approaches. The first approach is when you try to go deeper inside and try to understand, who am I? And try to give up the layers that surround you. And then you try to reach that point, which is the center of all these layers. The second approach is, look at this world. Here is this external world, and you see that too many changes are continuously going on. And if you try to analyze, there is no rhyme or reason. People in India swear by law of karma. Yes, law of karma is there. But in extremely limited sphere, limited quantity, very little. It's not all governing. Because most times when we say that it's karma, we mean to say that we don't have an answer to why this is happening. Nor it is random, because if it were random, we would not have succeeded in predicting certain things, and science would be a total failure. Science succeeds simply because law of karma holds. If law of karma, that is law of cause and effect, were not true, then science will collapse. See, I'll give you an example, a very interesting example. Those of you who are into reading science a bit, you will know that in 1960s, suddenly these American and European doctors came up with the idea that mother's milk is not at all important for the babies. And in India, see, we in India have been firm about this, that baby has to be fed mother's milk for thousands of years. And suddenly they also caught up with the idea because America has said. And this went on for a while. And the companies who were making baby food and milk and all those, They made a fortune. And then they realized, and kids which were brought up not on mother's milk developed many diseases in their later life. And even today, the scientists and doctors do not know in full what benefits, all the benefits that mother's milk has. Why? Because they somewhere missed that cause and effect thing. There's a very famous proverb in Hindi, agar maa ka doodh piya hai to. It's a very famous thing. If you have taken mother's milk, it's a very old proverb. And yet scientists failed because in their limited understanding of cause and effect, there was no utility of. What I mean to say that there are areas that cannot be probed, and there are areas where we find that law of cause and effect holds. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if you take chili, your mouth will burn. And there it ends. Beyond that, you cannot say. So then, are we at the mercy of brute forces? For example, right now we are passing through this corona crisis. It seems as if somebody has thrown us in the ocean of misery. My own friends, good friends, with whom I have been for decades, 30 years, 40 years, they are dying. Sometimes they had related diseases, sometimes they did not have. Every now and then some news comes, and lots of my friends whom I have known intimately, in their family, there is some crisis. Then we try to find out a reason. What karma we had done? Had the entire nation done such karma to suffer like this? Definitely not. Collective karma cannot be that bad. Actually, we don't have the answer. So naturally, we want to know if there is some substratum, if there is something which is firm, something that is holding all the changes. Very often you might have come across the statement like, change is the rule of life. If change is the rule of life, well then, we are going to be buffeted all our life by these chancy waves, randomness. If randomness rules everything, then life itself is very cruel. Existence has to be extremely cruel, but it is not. Because we also find that people have come up and proclaimed, he who followeth me shall never walk in darkness, said Jesus. Same, Lord Buddha says something similar, where he says that Chatwari Arya Satya. You follow these eternal truths and you will not have problem. Or in the Vedas you hear Shrinvantu Vishwe Amritasya Putra, O children of immortal bliss, listen to me. Know the Lord, and you will never have any kind of problem. The problem of mortality. The problem of mortality is what terrifies us. And the Vedas say you will transcend it. This has been very beautifully captured by the idea that whether or not there is something eternal amidst all this non-eternal. If there is a substratum on the surface of which these changes are taking place, this is one line of thought. Another line of thought is where, as I mentioned, where you go inside. Famously, in yoga, we know that it's chitta vritti nirodh, where you say that let all mental modifications subside, and then you will know what is the truth. And as far as the cosmic aspect is concerned, this is the individual aspect. In the cosmic aspect, you want to know that this earth, these worlds, these stars, these moons and sun, these are all changing phenomena. Is there anything eternal? Is there anything fixed on which all these things are playing? When you look at religion, when you go deeper into it, and when you also try to take the complete picture, you find that every religion either begins with the external and goes to the internal, or starts from the internal and goes to the external. And in both cases, they try to answer that which is fixed amidst all changes, the eternal amidst non eternal. However, Buddhists, particularly the Shunyavad school, they are the major Kshanik Vijnanavad that talk about continuous transference of consciousness, a transfer of consciousness, and there in the ultimate analysis, nothing remains. Swamiji will essentially talking about these things today. So essentially, it's the conflict between Vedanta and Buddhism. As far as Vedanta is concerned, it will say that Sarvam Kalvidam Brahman. Brahman alone exists, everything else is changeable on its surface. And Buddhist will say that it's all Shunya, complete annihilation. It's a very interesting discussion. Those of you who have some penchant, some liking for philosophical thinking and philosophical discussions, you will find it very interesting. Swamiji begins with, without mother love, no creation could continue. Now see, when you start analyzing what exactly is happening at the cosmic level, what exactly is happening at the external level, you want to know, and you realize that we are not talking about common people. We are talking about the saints and sages, those who try to get a peep into the spiritual nature of the universe. And they realize that there is a force. There is the absolute and there is the force. The absolute cannot be expressed because it's beyond mind. This we have discussed many times, and we will discuss again. Now we know that normally, under normal conditions, it's the female of the species that gives birth to its like. Nowadays in America, we're talking about this female and gender and all those things. It has become a taboo. They say that it's discrimination. Crazy ideas here. Now, because female gives birth to the next generation, and God being beyond all this, it is quite natural for the sages to express that creative force as mother. It's very natural. You don't have to know rocket science to relate these two things. Here in this world, we see that is a feminine power. Without females, species would die, simply die. That is why Manu Baba, in his Manusmriti, very famously said that females need protection. They need to be protected. Because if you don't protect, whole thing will go wrong. Your society will collapse. In villages even today, cows cost more than bullocks. The species, the bovine species grows only through cows, not through bullocks. Not through oxen, sorry, bullocks, oxen. And here is this creation coming at the cosmic level. Now just link up these two. Without mother love, no creation could continue. And then Swamiji gets into nothing is entirely physical, nor yet entirely metaphysical. One presupposes the other and explains the other. If you look at today's science, you find that every day they're becoming more and more materialists. By materialists, the meaning is those who think that matter is the ultimate of everything, matter and energy. Earlier scientists were not like that. Even Newton was a very good Christian. He thoroughly believed in Christianity. But during his time, the French physicists, they stopped believing in God. And slowly this tradition has taken up, because to explain lots of things in physics, you don't require God. Obviously, now if you don't require God, why should you unnecessarily get into it? Because it's personal matter. However, you will see that scientists all over the world, either they themselves or sometimes their wife, they're devout religious persons, whether it be Muslim or Christian, Buddhist or Hindu. Of course, in Hinduism, you find that a lot of scientists, they themselves are highly religious, particularly the South Indian scientists. However, when we look at the world, particularly this modern generation who has no idea about what religion is, and their entire knowledge of religion comes through this Facebook and WhatsApp and all this social media, for them, matter is the last word. So if they are explaining religion, they are explaining spirituality, they are explaining God, they will explain as matter. I knew someone, he met me after many years some time ago, and he was explaining to me that he said that he has spent years working on religion and he realized that God is energy. I said, what you have realized, this Sankhya philosophy and Yoga philosophy realized long ago. And Vedanta said that this cannot be the ultimate. Because your mind lives at a particular level. Everything that is there, you will try to judge through that. Swamiji very beautifully narrates a story that there was a kingdom and there was an attack by the enemy, and he went into consultation. So carpenters came and said, let us cover the entire place. Let's build a fortress of wood. Ironsmith, they said, let's make an iron wall. And then came the cobblers and they said, nothing like leather, sir. See, what we know, we try to explain everything, every phenomenon through what we know. And we also try to find solution only through that. There might be some simpler solution. But because we don't have any idea, we don't go for that. Now, these materialists, they try to explain spirituality as matter. And persons who are deeply spiritual, truly spiritual, they explain the world as an act of God. And their followers, you will see that till the other day, all over the world, particularly in India, they explain their misery, their happiness, the birth and the death, everything as an act of God. Today, the problem of our country, India, is that we gave up religion. We have completely given up religion. And actually, religious values have gone. And we have not yet succeeded in becoming materialists. And India can never become fully materialist. So we are suffering. Because materialists also have their values. And materialists have their ways and means to protect their life. We don't have that. Nor we have the value system of the religious, because we gave that up. That's why we are suffering. Now, when we have to explain something today, we don't have a theory. We don't have that key through which we can explain everything. No, we don't have. Materialists explain religion and spirituality through matter. And the spiritual ones explain the world as spiritual. Unfortunately, today we lack both. One presupposes the other and explains the other. It is in the nature. However, Swamiji says that no, world is not like this. World, you cannot say that it's entirely physical, nor can you say that entirely it is metaphysical. No, it's both. Actually, answer is very simple. If you look at the Indian tradition, and the best Indian traditions today that we have is through Yoga and Vedanta. The other philosophical systems have gone into the background now. And Vedanta is all encompassing. It takes up everything. It takes up the Shakti worship also. It takes up Bhakti aspect also. It takes up yoga aspect also. Particularly Acharya Shankar, he brought everything on one single platform. So Vedanta basically covers everything. When you have this Hindu approach, you realize that this is the interplay of consciousness and mind. Consciousness, consciousness is God. It is pure, unalloyed. For whatever reason, consciousness being all powerful, it appears as sensate, that which can sense things, that is mind. And now there is a play of consciousness and mind. Mind is matter. Now consciousness now appears as matter from the standpoint of consciousness. But from the standpoint of the mind, it is very much real. This pain, from the standpoint of consciousness, may be pure consciousness. But from the standpoint of matter, is pure matter. You cannot say that it appears as matter. This is where entire Hindu philosophical system, as also idealism and realism and all those things, base their arguments. This is the crux, this is the crucial point. Is this pen matter? Or is this pen pure consciousness? Swamiji says that world is, nothing is entirely physical. You cannot say that it's entirely physical. Because if you say it's entirely physical, let's say, if you say it's entirely physical, you can say, then you become follower of Sankhya philosophy. Because in Sankhya philosophy, there is Purush, pure consciousness, and there is energy. These are independent reality. These being independent reality, pen as matter becomes real. And in yoga also, because these are real, it can be real. However, when it comes to human beings, then there is a combination of these two, combination of consciousness and mind. But Vedanta doesn't see it that way, and that is why Vedanta became supreme. Vedanta started ruling over all. According to Vedanta, the ultimate nature of this pen is consciousness, as we shall see. However, till you are seeing it through your mind, it is matter. So saying that this is pure consciousness, now when you take the example of snake and rope and crystal and flower, no, that cannot be applied everywhere. See, many people come asking us questions on after listening to these popular talks. It's not that. This pen is a pen till you have a mind. If your mind goes away, then this pen also goes away. So this question does not arise whether pain is consciousness or not. Pain is a matter. You will say in absolute sense this is consciousness. That question does not arise because you cannot ask this question till you are in the relative world, till you are in the realm of mind. This exactly is the problem. See, you read any philosophy, you read all these great masters, philosophy masters, they all get stuck up there. There's no way. Because to explain consciousness, there should be somebody who has experienced consciousness. So when Roger Penrose write Emperor's New Mind, he hasn't experienced consciousness. How can you write? You explain consciousness as feeling. You explain consciousness as I-ness. Basically, by consciousness, you mean subjectivity. Yes, consciousness is subjectivity, no doubt about it. But consciousness is much more than that. Unless you have experienced something, how can you explain? You have not experienced consciousness. You have not experienced God. How can you explain God? This is the big problem. And that is why you find in Sri Ramakrishna Swami Vivekananda tradition, well, they're very clear. Sri Ramakrishna at every step says, yeah, he has seen God, and not once, he just goes on talking about this. And so, whole thing becomes real. Theists agree that there is a background to this visible universe. They differ as to the nature or character of that background. Materialists say there is no background. According to the materialists, it's all matter. Matter and energy, they being same. It's always interplay of energy and matter. Energy matter. Wherever there is energy matter, there will be a field, and wherever there is field, there is space. So all this space, field, energy, matter, they are all one and the same thing. However, they appear as different depending on how you are looking at and how you have been trained to look at these things. But these, those who are believers in God, those who are believers in consciousness, say that no. Nityo Nityanam. All the changes that we see, all the waves that we see, there is a base to it. There is a substratum to it. There is that ocean. Because there is this ocean, we see all these waves. If this ocean were not there to be, then we cannot think of the ocean. Now, these questions have been taken up by physicists, and they go on talking about, particularly when Einstein's theory of relativity came, general theory of relativity. No, though, when you have two things in motion, so you have a relative aspect, these things. Someone was arguing with Sri Ramakrishna on some point. And Sri Ramakrishna, as was his habit, if somebody argued too much with him, he used to get angry. He says, why should I listen to you? I have seen it like this. Kabir Das, this is a very famous sage poet, he also used to say, Tu kahta kagad ki lekhi, मैं कहता आंखन की देखी. You say that it's written in the books like this, and I say I have seen it like this. A person who has experienced it directly, he won't believe whatever the books have to say, whatever the arguments have to say. He has experienced it. Because ultimately, experience is the greatest teacher. Nothing works in front of experience. You can question those experiences. You can say that people have wrong vision and people have wrong hearings. Yes, those are all right. But one who has experienced, he knows. Particularly if there is a uniform experiencing. People who have experience, they say that, well, we have seen that truth. There is no question of changes being the ultimate truth. So Swamiji says that these theists, they differ in the nature or character of that background. So some will say that it's Allah, and someone will say it's God, and someone will say it's Brahman, and someone will say it's Vishnu. Why? Because to know that substratum, you have to transcend your mind. Once you transcend your mind, you come back. It's very difficult to say how much of infinity you understood. Because infinity is something that cannot be understood, it can be experienced. The infinity, God, the being ultimate powerful, it depends on his sweet desire whether he will appear to you as Allah or as God or as Buddha or as Vishnu. We don't know whether he will appear as somebody formless having this kind of form, or he will appear to you the way it appeared to Sri Ramakrishna in different forms. And that's why Sri Ramakrishna could say that all religions are true. True in the sense that they lead you to that. Because paths can never be same, nor can even the goal be same, in the sense that someone will have knowledge of some aspect of the infinite, some will have other aspects of the infinite, some will have more aspects of the infinite, they will all be knowing the infinite. For example, we are here in Kolkata at Belur Math. And there are many people here around who go and have darshan of Ganga. They go make pranams to Ganga, the most sacred river in the world. And people go and sprinkle Ganga water on themselves. They take a sip and then say, "Well, I know Ganga. I've seen Ganga." And there are others who have seen Ganga starting from Gomukh through Haridwar to Patna to Kolkata and up to Ganga Sagar. Now, naturally, you have two kinds of people who know Ganga. Someone knows Ganga only at Varanasi, some knows Ganga in Kolkata, some know at Haridwar. And there are some who have seen Ganga from Gangotri down to Ganga Sagar or Gomukh to Ganga Sagar. Sri Ramakrishna is someone who has seen Ganga like this. And there are other masters. No, it's no question of comparison. I'm just narrating a fact. So they also know the infinite. They also know Ganga. However, they know Ganga at one spot. You cannot say that their knowledge, their experience, their vision is wrong. Nor can you say it is limited, because Ganga is Ganga. Wherever you touch it, wherever you see it, you will be purified. Effect is same. You see the infinite in any form, you will be blessed. You will become blessed. So it does not matter. However, now when we talk about Sri Ramakrishna, we don't mean to say that he mapped the entire infinite. No, it's not possible. It's just not possible for anyone to map the entire infinite. Maybe after 1,000 years, 2,000 years, someone else may come and say that he has mapped the infinite much more than Sri Ramakrishna had done. Quite possible. We don't know the future. But as far as we know today, as of today, no past master has experienced the infinite God in its so many aspects. Because Hinduism itself has thousands and thousands of aspects. As I said, you can see Lord Buddha as someone who started a new religion. You can also see Lord Buddha as a Hindu who started a new sect. Because we have something like that. There is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He started a new sect. He stayed within Hinduism. Now, if Lord Buddha had continued to say that he is a Hindu, his ways would have been different, absolutely different. And yet he would have continued to be a Hindu. So Buddhism is basically a facet of the larger Hindu. And Swamiji also says Buddhism is the rebel child of the Hinduism. Hinduism has so many facets to offer. And Sri Ramakrishna experienced all of them. So Swamiji says that nature and character will differ. You can use that elephant example which we explained previously. Now, supposing someone who has seen Ganga only in Haridwar or in Varanasi, now they meet somewhere else and they go on describing Ganga, and they will say, well, Ganga is like this, and the other one will say Ganga is like this. Only one who has seen Ganga flowing from Haridwar or Gangotri to Ganga Sagar will know that they are all talking the same thing. In all religions, the superconscious state is identical. Now, mind it, superconscious state is identical. When you take a dip in Ganga, whether it be at Haridwar or at Varanasi or at Belur Math, these are all same. However, that does not mean that you know Ganga, because no one can know Ganga. No one can know God. You can be one with it. You can take a dip into it. You can have an experience of it. But no one can know. No one. Hindus, Christians, Mohammedan, Buddhists, and even those of no creed, all have the very same experience when they transcend the body. So Swami is very clearly saying Hindus and Christians and Mohammedans, they all have these experiences. Even if someone says that it doesn't belong to any creed, if you can transcend your body by Swamiji, by body Swamiji means mind too. If you can transcend this, you will have the same experience. You become one with pure consciousness. You will become one with the infinite. The purest, here Swamiji moves over to Christianity, and those who were present with Swamiji at that Thousand Island Park, that retreat, they were all Christians. And Swamiji never let go of a chance to attack Christianity. The purest Christians in the world were established in India by the Apostle Thomas about 25 years after the death of Jesus, which is a historical fact. This was while the Anglo-Saxons, means Anglo-Saxons, those in Britain, and most of these Americans, they had come from Europe. This was while the Anglo-Saxons were still savages, painting their bodies and living in caves. Swamiji was extremely proud of India and Hindu religion. Hindu religion, it welcomed every kind of religion till they preached spirituality. Parsis were welcome. Christians were welcome, Jews were welcome, Jains were welcome, Buddhists were welcome, and even Islam was welcome, because the huge population of Muslims that you see from, say, Pakistan to Bangladesh, mostly they were Hindus. They accepted Islam. And every time there was a conversion, it was not only by the power of sword or by the greed of gold. And many people who were fascinated, like Kashmir. Kashmir was converted into Islam by the great Muslim saints. India recognizes spirituality. India abhors violence in any form, whether it be in the name of spirituality or be in the name of materialism. And that's why it could not accept certain things. So he's just sounding that caution that look, when your ancestors were still living in caves and painting themselves, Christianity, about which you are so proud, its purest form was being practiced in India. Look how superior we are. So Swamiji was not always talking about Hindu race, Hindu religion. He was going into a larger perspective of India. Christianity is always, the Christians in India once numbered about 3 millions, but now they are about 1 million in Swamiji's time. So we now find mostly in Kerala we have a good number, sizable number of Christians. And in South India, here and there are pockets. During Swamiji's time in Goa also, there were a large number of Christians. Christianity is always propagated by the sword. In fact, this is a historical fact. Christianity used gold, but sparsely. It was mostly by the power of sword. And the less we talk about Islam, the better. How wonderful that the disciples of such a gentle soul should kill so much. Now that's the ultimate point that Swami says, that Jesus, so gentle, so gentle. And their followers, they went around killing. Once long ago, I was wondering at this question that Jesus was so mild and his followers went around killing. And Lord Krishna says, Uttishta, O Arjun, arise and fight. And these Indians are so docile. Why? Then suddenly it struck me that, see, look, God will teach you what you lack. The Western world lacks peace. Western world lacks gentleness. Jesus preached them these, but they could not take. We in India, we have been tamasic by nature. We say that we are gentle, we are actually cowards, extremely cowards and lazy. We Hindus, we in India. So Lord Krishna came and told, come, change your nature. So even today, we chant Gita and we swear by Gita. And yet when somebody comes and hits a Hindu, we say that his karma brought it upon him. We never try to defend him. Naitatva tvayi upapadyate. This does not behove you, Lord Krishna says, opening verses of second chapter. India never took it up. It's beneath our dignity. It's beneath our dignity. We don't have that sense. India and Hindus. Swamiji also tried to do the same thing. He tried to inject the pride of Indianness. He tried to inject the pride of Hinduism. Nothing. See today. Same plight. Because after all, the masters will preach you what you lack. Christianity is always propagated by the soul. How wonderful that is, should kill so much. The three missionary religions are the Buddhist, Mohammedan, and Christian. Obvious. The three older ones, Hinduism, Judaism, and Zoroastrianism, never sought to make converts. See, they definitely had converts because otherwise, how will the religion grow? So Zoroaster, he had some converts, and the whole of Iran was there. And when the king converted, its entire subject converted. Same with Judaism too. Judaism had this concept of baptism because they were tribes, and when these tribes were inducted in the fold, they were given baptism. Slowly, this practice of baptism continued in the Jordan River for the Jews. And then Christians took up that practice. However, when there was some kind of break, when there was attack, they suddenly stopped converting just to maintain their purity. Hindus also, Hinduism at one time, it went up to the borders of Iran and China and the Far East, practically up to Japan, whole of Indonesia and all. They were all Hindus. But when the attacks started coming, they stopped converting. Buddhists never killed, but converted 3/4 of the world at one point by pure gentleness. This is a teaching of Swamiji to these Christians who were with him. Now here comes very important statement. The Buddhists were the most logical agnostics. This word agnostic, actually agnostic is when you say that you don't know the truth. Somehow, this word agnosticism has become extremely popular in present times. When you apply it to religion, you find that Buddhism is the only religion where this word fits. Because a true Hindu will not say that he is an agnostic. The very approach of the Hindu, because Hinduism very clearly says that, well, we have this God, we have, say, Vishnu, or we believe in Atman. Not in Buddhism. Buddhism leaves enough room for agnosticism. Why? You can really stop nowhere between nihilism and absolutism. If you remember what we discussed in the beginning, which is very, very, very important, that when you go inside, when you start analyzing your mind and see all the waves that are there in your mind, and you try to calm down those waves, then finally you realize that once all the waves subside, mind is no more mind, because mind is mind till there are waves. The technical term for this in yogi, chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta vritti, the mental waves, when they are completely calmed down. But chitta means vritti. If there is no thought in the mind, you cannot say that this is mind anymore. When you talk about current electricity means there is movement of electron. If there is no movement of electron, then it's not current electricity. When they say this static electricity, actually static electricity is no electricity, just charge. There's a difference between charge and electricity. Electricity has to be mobile. There has to be mobility in it. If there is no mobility, you cannot call it electricity. There's a difference between when we were in school, we were taught this static electricity and all. Static electricity is essentially just charge. Only when there is a flow, it's electricity. Anyway, even if you say current electricity, take the example of current electricity and say that when there is a flow, only then it's current electricity. Without flow, it's not current. Mind, if there is no thought, if there is no flow, it's not mind. And you say that in that final stage, mind stops functioning. Can you call it mind? No, you cannot. Then what is there? How do you know? Now, these yoga and Vedanta, they say that it is pure consciousness. And yoga and Sankhya say there is infinite number of consciousness. Consciousness, Purusha. But that is pure conjecture. It is from the common understanding of the world. Vedanta says that there is the one absolute. One, not because it is one, because if you say it's one, you become a Christian or a Muslim. Absolute. That means only that exists. It is not zero. It's not two. Buddhists say, no, it's shunya. And the great philosophers of Buddhism, they have proved logically that it is shunya. And based on the same words, the philosophers have also proved that it is momentary consciousness, kshanika vijnanavad, where you keep on transferring consciousness. When Shankaracharya came, he hit Buddhism exactly on this, that Tathagata, Lord Buddha, did he intend to lead his disciples on misleading path? That he gave different ideas? That his disciples, someone says Kshanika Vijnanavad, and someone says Shunyavad, and someone says Yogachar. What kind of teaching is this? This is where Shankaracharya hit. Now, Shankaracharya was later attacked. Vedanta also has this problem. No, there is a fundamental difference between Vedanta and, say, Buddha. According to Vedanta, when we see Shankara says the meaning of Vedanta has to be seen this way. With Acharya Shankara looks at Lord Buddha as a person who is explaining spirituality. If you have to compare Buddha, you have to compare with Shankaracharya, not with Vedanta. Because Vedanta has grown up by the words of many sages. What Acharya Shankara says that the Vedanta has to be understood properly because so many sages have contributed in it. Now, what Swamiji says that you can really stop nowhere between nihilism and absolutism. This is one of those phenomenal statements. Those of you who are really interested in philosophy, really interested in Vedanta, should note down this statement. It's such a powerful statement. You cannot come across such a statement anywhere by any teacher. There is nihilism, there is Shunyavad, and there is absolutism, Advait. So you have Advait and you have Buddhism. Buddhism, by Buddhism we mean Shunyavad. Basically, even when you say Kshanik Vijnanavad, this also tends towards Shunya only. Reason being, they do not accept substratum. None of these Buddhist schools will accept that there is an ultimate fundamental truth. Now, those Buddhists, that is Mahayana, those who belong mostly to Mahayana, they started worshipping Buddha and they believe that Buddha is God. Now, you see, these things become so complicated because Lord Buddha, the teachings of Lord Buddha, philosophically seem nearer to nihilism, that is Shunyavad. But when you worship Lord Buddha, it becomes nearer to Hinduism. People don't even realize that. And of course, it's not my job to enlighten the Buddhists. However, if you go into philosophy, if you start analyzing things deeper and deeper, then you realize that what we discussed in the beginning, there is this phenomena, the world of phenomena, where there are changes and there are objects and they're continuously changing. Either you say that ultimately there is nothing because everything is continuously changing, like Einstein. For him, if there are two objects continuously in motion, you don't require any rest. The idea of absolute rest, which was needed, say, in Newtonian physics, is not needed in Einstein's physics. So was Newtonian physics wrong? No, it's not wrong. Einstein's physics is just an extension. Now you will say that, well, then Einstein is an extension. No, just to explain an idea. Because Buddhism will be taken up by people who have such disposition. One young lady, she is a very good friend of mine. She wrote that there was a time when she wanted to become a Buddhist nun. Then she realized that after all, she is a Hindu. Why should she become a nun? She gave up that idea. Similarly, there is another lady in Delhi. She was reading my book, The World of Religions, and she was so impressed reading my book on my section on Buddhism that she thought that she should take up Buddhism as the way of life. And then she also realized that, okay, fine, I'm a Hindu. Why should I think like that, even think like that? The pride that I'm a Hindu. But more than that, it's a disposition. Just imagine the sheer beauty of having millions and millions of gods. Once somebody told me, why Hindus have so many gods? I jokingly said, poor have only one house, rich have many houses. We, the rich in spirituality, have many gods. We can afford. The others are poor. It was just told in joke. Nothing serious about it. Ultimately, it is fact. If you understand the infinite, you will know that there has to be millions and millions of gods. Gods with a small g, not with capital. Because when we say capital G, it always means the absolute. When you start analyzing, when you go deeper analysis, both theoretically as also by way of, say, yogic meditations, then you reach a point where there is just one wave left in the mind. And then you like to give it up. When you give it up, what remains? Depending on what is your orientation, you will say it is zero or it is absolute. I use this aspect in my novel Kratu. Those of you who have read Kratu will remember that Kratu makes up a beautiful story which says that in ancient times, sages had difference of opinion. What would be the answer if infinity was taken away from infinity? Infinity minus infinity. So sages who said the answer would be infinity became Vedantins. And those who said the answer would be zero became Buddhists. Now that story is made in jest, but that is the idea. If you take infinity out of infinity, what remains? Naturally, some will say zero and some will say infinity. Because infinity plus infinity is infinity. So infinity minus infinity should also be infinity. But we know that when you take something away from something fully, it becomes zero. It is about your perception. I personally believe, and of course, I am not a philosopher, not even a teacher of philosophy, and not even a scholar. I always believe that when Buddhists talk about Shunyavad, if you focus on phenomenon, just on phenomena, and you find that at the ultimate level, all phenomena subside. Seen from the perspective of phenomena, it will be Shunya. Seen from the aspect of the ultimate reality, Buddhahood, it will be infinite, absolute. And this is what Swamiji says. You can really stop nowhere. Everything else that we talk about. So monotheism, like other religions like Christianity, Islam, etc., they don't stand. They just don't stand a religion. They just don't stand a chance. Sects like Vaishnavas, sects like Shaivism and all that, they just don't stand a chance, provided you apply harsh reasoning. Apply reasoning, apply the bulldozer of reasoning. Everything will be crushed. Only two things will remain: the Shunya Buddhists and absolute of Advaita Vedanta. Maybe we will take it up from there, from this point itself, in the next talk. Thank you so much.